நன்றி. இன்னமும் கூட இந்த நிகழ்ச்சிக்கு வந்து தேவையான முழு தொகையும் கிடைக்கல. அதனால் நீங்கள் எல்லாருமே போகும்போது வந்து ஒரு டப்பா வச்சுருப்பாங்க நன்கொடைன்னு சொல்லிட்டு, அதை உங்களால் இயன்ற நன்கொடையை போட்டுப்போங்க. கடைசி நேரத்தில் வந்து என்னுடைய நண்பரும் ஒளிப்பதிவாளமான விஜய் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங் வந்து ஒரு கொஞ்சம் பணம் கொடுத்தாரு. அவரே மேடையில் கௌரவிக்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். விஜய் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங். தேங்க்யூ. ரொம்ப முக்கியமாக இந்த நிகழ்ச்சி மட்டும் இல்லை, எந்த நிகழ்ச்சியுமே ஆகட்டும் அல்லது தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோடைய செயல்பாடுகளாகட்டும், இந்த நண்பர்கள் இல்லைனா சாத்தியப்படாதுன்னு சொல்லக்கூடிய அளவுக்கு இருக்கக்கூடிய என்னுடைய படிமை மாணவர்கள், அவங்களுக்கு வந்து இங்கே இடையில சின்ன சின்ன இன்ட்ரோ கொடுப்பாங்க. இருந்தாலும் அவர்களுக்கும் முதல்ல இந்த நினைப்பரிசு கொடுக்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஐயப்பன், இவங்களுக்கு நீங்கள் நல்லா கைத்தரலாம், ஏன்னா என்னுடைய மாணவர்கள் இவங்களா. ஆனந்த் பாட்டத்தின் அவர்களை கொடுக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கலாம். அருண்ராஜ், ஜெயகாந்தன், சசிகுமார் நினைவு பரிசு பெறுமாறு கேட்டுக்கிறேன். காளிமுத்து, காளிமுத்துக்கு புத்ததேவ் தாஸ் அவர்கள் கொடுக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். விக்னேஷ் அம்சன்குமார் அவர்கள் கொடுக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். நீ கொடுத்துருங்க, வாங்கி. ரியாஸ், ரியாஸ்ங்கடா. அருண்ராஜ், ஆவணப்பட இயக்குனர் கோம்பை அன்வர் இந்த நினைவு பரிசை கொடுப்பார். சரவணன், சசிகுமார் அவர்கள் கொடுக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். தமிழ், புத்ததேவ் தாஸ் குப்தா அவர்களை மீண்டும் ஒருமுறை கொடுக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். தயாளன் வந்து தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோவுக்கு ஒரு 3 வருடம் முன்னாடி பழக்கமானார். சென்னையில் தான் வேலை செஞ்சுட்டு இருக்கும்போது எந்த விதமான எதிர்பார்ப்பும் இல்லாமலே தொடர்ந்து தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோவுக்கு மாதம் மாதம் ஒரு 5000 ரூபாய் கொடுத்து அதனுடைய ஆரம்ப கட்டத்தில் நிறைய உதவி பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தார். இப்போது கேரளாவில் ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. ஸ்டில் அவர் ஒரு தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோ ஒரு பார்ட். அவர் மெடிக்கலுக்கு போங்க. ஆனந்த் பாட்டத்தின் அவர்கள் இந்த எழுதுவாங்க. இன்னும் ஒருத்தர் இருக்காரு, நான் நிறைய முறை அவரை பற்றி முகநூல் எழுதியிருக்கேன். இன்றைக்கி வந்து இந்த ஒரு சுதந்திரத்தோட என்னால் வேலை செய்ய முடியாது. சிவபாலன் சுந்தரம் சொன்ன மாதிரி தொடர்ந்து போராடுன்றது, அதுவும் இல்லாமல் வெகுஜனங்களை அல்லது ஆதிக்க சக்திகளை எதிர்த்து போராடுன்றது ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய போராட்டம். அதை வந்து இந்த அளவுக்கு தொடர்ந்து செய்கிறதுக்கு வந்து ஒரு பின்னணியில் வந்து ஒருத்தர் கட்டாயமாக தேவை. நான் வந்து என்னுடைய பொருளாதாரத்தை பார்க்குறதா அல்லது வந்து இந்த போராட்டங்களை மேற்கொள்வதான்ற ஒரு இக்கட்டான நிலையிலும் என்னுடைய பொருளாதார நிலையை ஓரளவுக்கு சரி செஞ்சு என்ன எந்த அளவுக்கு ஒரு திருப்தியாக அல்லது நிம்மதியாக வச்சிருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு வருஷம் கூட எனக்கு அவருக்கும் பழக்கம் இல்லை. என்னுடைய நண்பர் ராஜசிம்மன் அவர்களை மேடைக்கு அழைக்கிறேன். பேசாமொழி பதிப்பகத்தோடைய பங்குதாரர் அவர் தான் அந்த புத்தகங்களை கொண்டு வரதுக்கு முழு காரணமும். ஸோ ரொம்ப நேரமாக கைத்து நீங்கள் எல்லாருக்குமே என்னுடைய தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோ சார்பாக ரொம்ப நன்றி. இந்த ஒரு 20 பேர் இந்த ஒரு 20 நிமிஷன்றது கொஞ்சம் ஒரு மாதிரியா இருக்கு, என்ன இவ்வளோ பேர் வந்துகிட்டே இருக்காங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. இது ஒரு தனிப்பட்ட நபருடைய உழைப்பு இல்லை, இவ்வளோ பேர் அது பின்னணியில் உழைப்பாக இருக்காங்க. இது இல்லாமல் கீழே சுந்தர் கேமரா எடுத்துகிட்டு இருக்கான், இந்த பக்கம் தினேஷ் எழுதிட்டு இருக்காங்க. இவங்க வந்து தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோட ஒரு பார்ட்டாக மாறிட்டாங்க. நான் எப்படியோ அவங்களும் அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பார்ட்டாக மாறிட்டாங்க. ஸோ அவங்களுக்கு இந்த விருதுகள் கிடையாது. தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோவில் இருக்கிறதே ஒரு விருது தான் நினைக்கிறேன். மறுபடியும் இந்த மேடையை அன்வர் அவர்களுக்கு கொடுத்து விடுகிறேன். நன்றி.
From the world of Bengali cinema, which gave us legends like Ritvik Katak, Satyajit Ray and Mrinal Sen and so on, comes another gift, Buddhadev Dasgupta. A man who gave up his teaching job to pursue the love of his life, cinema. A pursuit that began in 1968 and continues to this day. Over the years, he has won 12 national awards in various categories, such as Best Director, Best Film, and so on. A Lifetime Achievement Award from Spain, Golden Lion from Venice, Golden Ethna from Athens, the list goes on. A poet by nature, his films are also like lovely poems that touches your heart. Tamil. Now, the same thing will be said in Tamil. After that, we request him to.
ரித்விக் கட்டாக், சத்யாஜித் ரே, மிர்னால் சென் வரிசையில் இந்திய திரைப்படத்துறைக்கு வங்காளத்தில் மற்றும் ஒரு கொடை திரு புத்ததேவ் தாஸ்குப்தா அவர்கள். திரைப்படங்கள் மீதான விருப்பத்தால் பொருளாதார ஆசிரியர் பணியை உதறிவிட்டு படங்களை இயக்க தொடங்கினார். 1968 தொடங்கி 40 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேலாக தீவிரமாக அதே துறையில் இயங்கி வருகிறார் இன்று வரை. சிறந்த இயக்குனர் பிரிவில் 2 முறையும், சிறந்த படங்கள் பிரிவில் 5 முறையும், இன்னும் சில பிரிவுகள் சேர்த்து மொத்தமாக 12 தேசிய விருதுகளை பெற்றிருக்கிறார். ஸ்பெயினின் மேட்ரிட் நகரில் நடைபெறும் சர்வதேச திரைப்பட விழாவில் வாழ்நாள் சாதனையாளர் விருதும், வெனிஸில் கோல்டன் லைன் விருதும், ஏதென்ஸில் கோல்டன் ஏத்தனா விருதும் என சர்வதேச அளவில் பெற்ற விருதுகளின் பட்டியல் நீளமானது. இயல்பில் கவிஞரான திரு புத்ததேவ் அவர்கள் படங்களும் அவருடைய கவிதை நீட்சி என்றுதான் சொல்ல முடியும். ஒரு முறை ஒரு இன்டர்வியூல அவர்கிட்ட கேட்டப்ப, நீங்க ஏன் கமர்ஷியல் படங்கள் பண்றதுல என்ன, அதுக்கு ஒரு பதில் சொன்னாரு. நான் அப்படியே சொல்றேன். No, I will never do that because I know what I am doing and I know how to do it. I am happy doing things that I believe in. நன்றி.
We request Buddhadev Dasgupta ji to address the audience.
Thank you for your kind words. But there's one thing that you have told which is unfortunately not the right thing, that I got this best silver lion for the best director, not golden lion. I'm very happy to be here. When Arun told me through a friend of mine, our common friend, that I have to go to Chennai for a film function, I said no, I am not available. Then he told me, well, this is, he called me back again, he told me this is to give an award to Anand Pattabardhan. Then I said without a single thought, yes, of course I will go. Anand Pattabardhan, we know each other for a long time. I think that was his first film and my first film. We were together in Berlin. It was 1979 or 80, I've forgotten by now. Since then I have been following Anand Pattabardhan. He is a person who has never compromised. More than that is his honesty. His honesty to cinema and his great love for cinema, the documentary filmmaking, where he has confined himself so far. Even when I was watching these small films that he has made, it is so wonderful. These films really make you think. And that's exactly what Anand wanted to do. And after watching these films, I think knowingly or unknowingly, we realize that we have been changing. If we keep on seeing these films, then definitely our attitude towards the society will change. And this is something unique. Well, it is not only Anand Pattabhardhan, there are a few others. I know my contemporary, Anand's contemporary, Anand also knows them. They have suffered like Anand Pattabhardhan quite a lot. Government went against them, system went against them. Some of them have given up. I'm very glad to see that Anand is still going strong with this kind of cinema. And my friend has very rightly said, he has started a movement. And the only thing sometimes pains me is that why other filmmakers, the young documentary filmmakers in this country are not following a person like Anand Pattabhardhan or other filmmakers who has done films with great honesty, without compromising with anything. This really saddens me. Saddens me in Bengal, saddens me when I go to Bombay, saddens me when I come to Chennai. I think maybe there are some filmmakers, I have not seen their films, but unfortunately there are not many. So coming to Chennai, all the way from Calcutta, to confer this award to Anand Pattabhardhan, my friend, I'm really feeling very happy. Arun told me to say something about good cinema. I don't know what is that. I really don't know what is good cinema. I think one has to be honest. Honest to himself, honest to his medium or her medium. This is the first thing that should happen with a person who dreams to be a filmmaker. When I started long time back, I started filmmaking. Arvindan, Adur was there, Shyam was there, Ketan Mehta was there. There were many others. Girish Kasarvalli was there. You know, our dream was to do something. We were in love with cinema. That is very deep love. Well, loving a lady is really great, but that may fade away. But if you fall in love with cinema, that love never fades away. That has really happened in many of our lives, you know. Our love for cinema was really great. When I look at the young filmmakers, especially in Bengal, I feel sad. These young filmmakers, I don't know what they want to achieve. They want to achieve fame. They want their photographs to be printed in page 3. They want to go abroad. They want to be known. But unfortunately, I doubt how much do they love cinema. So I think quote unquote good cinema can come out from this deep love for cinema. I remember I gave up my job. I was teaching economics, econometrics, and when I decided to give it up, I told my father. He was very upset. He stopped talking to me. My mother somehow accepted that. And one thing I wanted to happen to me, that I will not ask money from my father or even from my mother. When I started my film, there was nobody, no producer to support me. I had little money. I saved little money by making documentary films and saving my salaries for 3 years. Most of it I saved. Then I started the film Duratva. I was all the time very fearful. Fearful because I may have to go back to teaching again or to find out another job. Images that will follow you even in your dreams, that is very important. The problem is, most of the filmmakers, or we the filmmakers, we manipulate our images. And we knowingly or unknowingly manipulate that images. And forgetting that what we are seeing is far from reality. And that's not real. While I was watching Anand's film, these images are so original, but so powerful, but again so simple, so simple. That is the virtue of images which are not manipulated. So all these things together can create those images that will survive for decades, for centuries. I don't know much about Tamil cinema, but I know there's a great audience for this cinema, which you don't have in Bengal, which you don't have even in other parts of this country. Sometime back, this year I was in Trivandrum, Kerala, for another function. And some of my old filmmakers' friend told me that they have stopped filmmaking because there's no audience. That's why there's no producer, no backers, no financier. And that has not happened in Tamil Nadu. There's a great audience. The audience here, they love cinema. So I will request the filmmakers to think back and do something which will make your audience happier, especially to the budding filmmakers, to the prospective filmmakers, those who have been dreaming to make something different. They should try their hands, keeping one thing in mind, that They don't have to make that film for any film festival. They don't have to make that film for any film award. They don't have to make their films for critical appreciation only. They have to make their films for the sensitive audience. Still you have, I'm sure you have, in Tamil Nadu. Anything can be your subject. Like Anand has done. Anything. You can pick up anything and everything which has some value. Pick it up and make a film. And nowadays, I think Anand has also done that. You can really shoot a film without a big money. The only thing cinema demands from you is the honesty and love and care for those audience who really look forward for something altogether different. And thank you very much, my friends. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, my friend Shashi. Thank you very much.
Courage to go against the system. It also needs enormous courage to make cinema that you believe in. And I'm happy that you are still pursuing that. I'm not sure how many youngsters here, young filmmakers here, have the courage to go against the system. But I do know for sure that there are many among the audience, filmmakers who have been very much influenced by Anand Padwardhan. Leena, for one, definitely I know, who has gone on record, and I have spoken to many other friends who also are influenced by Anand. And yes, sir, you are also absolutely right that we Tamils love our cinema. And right now there are some interesting films that are being made, and that are also being made in low budgets. It's not big amount. There are superstars, but there are also films being done without superstars. So thank you for that appreciation about the Tamils' love for cinema. Now I'll go to the next item on this thing, which is a keynote address by Mr. Shashi Kumar. But before that, Mr. Shashi Kumar started his career as a newsreader in Doordarshan in those good old days when TV meant just Doordarshan. After a stint with Hindu as its West Asia correspondent, where when the Indian broadcasting scenario opened up, he was adventurous enough to start Asianet, a Malayalam channel that has become a household name in Kerala. He was awarded the Vijayaraghavan Memorial Award for his contribution to the media. He is also a filmmaker who got an award for his debut film Kaya Taran, which sensitively portrayed the Sikh riots. And he is the founder and chairman of Asian College of Journalism, bringing in a multifaceted personality and truly a media man. I request him to give the keynote address, but just 1 second, the same introduction will be done in Tamil.
அனைவருக்கும் மாலை வணக்கம். திரு சசிகுமார் அவர்கள் தூர்தர்ஷனில் ஆங்கில செய்தி அறிவிப்பாளராக தனது ஊடகத்துறை வாழ்க்கையை தொடங்கினார். பின்னர் இந்த இந்து ஆங்கில நாளிதழில் மேற்கு ஆசிய நிருபராக பணியாற்றியுள்ளார். இந்தியாவின் முதல் செயற்கைக்கோள் தொலைக்காட்சியான ஏஷியாநெட் மலையாளத்தில் தொடங்கினார். ஊடகத்துறையில் இவரின் சிறப்பான பணிக்காக விஜயராகவன் நினைவு விருதை 2007 பெற்றார். மேலும் ஏசியன் காலேஜ் ஆஃப் ஜேர்னலிசம் கல்லூரியை தொடங்கி சிறந்த பத்திரிகையாளர்களை உருவாக்கி வருகிறார். 1989 சீக்கியருக்கு எதிராக நடந்த கலவரத்தை அடிப்படையாக கொண்டு கயாத்தரன் திரைப்படத்தை இயக்கினார். இந்த படத்துக்கு சிறந்த அறிமுக இயக்குநருக்கான அரவிந்தன் விருதை பெற்றார். இவரை தமிழ் ஸ்டுடியோ சார்பாக அன்புடன் வரவேற்கிறேன். நன்றி.
வணக்கம். நான் தமிழில் பேச என்னால் வராது, அதனால அது மட்டும் இல்லை, எங்கள் ஆங்கிலத்தில் பேசினா தான் எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் புரியும். Let me first say that இந்த வேளையில் ஒரு உரையாற்றல் என்றுவது it may not be a good time for a keynote address, really speaking, because I think we are already running late, and I think the main thrust of the evening is to celebrate Anand Padwardhan and his films, and we have just had a foretaste of what he does. Some of us, of course, have seen some of his films. I have seen some of his films. But we are also going to see one at least a slightly longer film towards the end of this evening. So I'm kind of torn between what I should do. What I thought I will do is just mention 2 or 3 ideas that have come to my mind as a substitute for a keynote address, and hope to leave it there. From what has been said by Buddhadev and others, I think it's where we are at in terms of cinema seems to be a bit of a confusion. I think from the way I see it, I've always been a student of the visual media, particularly of the visual medium and films as well. It seems to me that one of the things that is happening now is the fatigue of the image. Because we have had a long history of the visual medium, and we are now in a position where we are moving into different forms of communication in the digitized age, digital forms of communication, where it's not just the visual. We are going back to orality. We are rediscovering sound. We are rediscovering tactileness. We are talking about immersive technologies. We had an experience of the immersive in the opening today with the parai, percussion. I don't think you can film that more powerfully than it was experienced, or you can visualize that. Even with digital surround sound, perhaps you won't get the same feel. So communication is moving into entirely new realms, and I think many of the younger people, those who are here as well, who are digital natives, they're not like me. You've been born with the mobile phone and the camera on the mobile phone to begin with, the texting, with social media, with Facebook, with multimedia skills. I find I'm never amazed. I never cease to be amazed in the Asian College of Journalism with succeeding generations of students who take to the technology in a course of 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days. I mean, they can start editing in about a week's time. How creatively is another matter, but they master the technique. It's almost as if they're born with it. So there's an entire big paradigm shift, I think, that is taking place. And one of the accompanying features of this is the fatigue, as I said, of the image. In fact, Jacques Rancière has written this wonderful book about the future of the image, where he raises the question about what is going to happen to the image and what are the connotations of the image. How is the image going to be as powerful in the future as it has been? One of the effects of digitization is that we are moving into a different frame, a different plane of experience, and how this will impact on a contemporary mode of communication, which is image dominant, shall we say, would be an interesting, I think, question. I certainly find languages changing. I find the print language is changing. And there's a huge challenge to print media today, not just in terms of the newspaper reading habit or the tablet taking over from that. That's important. But more importantly, I think, and more significantly, perhaps not as obviously discussed, in terms of the languaging. The fact that your more terse communicative language, the fact of Twitter, the fact of Facebook language, the fact of conversational language is taking over even the print forms. And if you wrote in the old print style, it is looking more and more decadent and more obscure and more irrelevant. So it is getting more and more. There's a great orality coming back into play. Similarly, I think it will be interesting to see how the fatigue of the image can be challenged. And this is, I think, to my mind, one of the big challenges of our times. Because you have, on the one hand, the fact of, in many cases, the reality that is happening in terms of news footage that you see. Not just in formal media, but informal media, through entrepreneurs, through private initiatives, through civil society, members of civil society who put it out there in YouTube form or in the Facebook as photographs or as visuals or as video streaming. you get to see what is happening in Gaza. You get to see how the children are being killed. You get to see what's happening in Iraq. You get to see what's happening in different parts of the world where there is injustice, where there is war, there is violence in our societies. And what are we getting, shall we say, immunized to this? Are we getting, I think, so there is more than ever a need for context, more than ever a need for perspective, more than ever a need for context and perspective to this, shall we say, lambasting of images that we are faced with. You know, we have a huge accumulation of images. Way back in 1970s, I think it was Guy Debord who wrote that famous manifesto, you know, where he spoke about the society of the spectacle. And he said that a definition of modern society will be that it accumulates spectacles. And that was quite a prescient thing to say at that time, but I think he lived in advance of his times because people thought he was talking, you know, over the top. But today we know, people are looking back and rediscovering Debord and saying it is indeed an accumulation of spectacles. There are those who even compare the accumulation of spectacles of Debord to the Marxist concept of the accumulation of wealth, and saying it is as important in terms of our contemporary reality, of the information age, where images are dominating our life. So how do you relate to these images? How do you engage with images is a big issue. And so is there a scope for a newly minted image? Is there a scope for a newly minted language? I think newly minted language is happening because it's technologically determined. The new forms of social media are determining the language, are challenging the language on a daily basis, and it's a question of time before we accept that we need to reinvent some of this language, to get into freshly minted language. And this is where I think Anand Patwardhan's corpus, you know, oeuvre, as it were, as a documentary filmmaker, to my mind is very significant, because when you see these images, these are enduring images. These are not images which will fade. They have a freshness, unfortunately, because the exploitation that he talks about, the injustice that he talks about, the gross divide in society that is at the basis of it, the marginalization of huge sections of our population that is his concern, are alive and vibrant and getting more and more impinging in terms of our social consciousness. And that, I think, is very significant. I think we are moving into a situation where there will be greater impatience with floweriness, both in terms of language and in terms of the image. There will be greater impatience with, my opinion, poesy, both in terms of language and in terms of the image. There will be greater demand for a stridency, you know, for getting to the gut of something, you know, for getting to the core of something, because we are also living in a fast society. There's no time and space. Time and space are huge luxuries now, and therefore we need to get to it quickly. And in such a situation, the turnover is very high. The attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. And it's significant that in this context, Anand Patwardhan can make a film called Jai Comrade Bhim, which runs in 2 parts for over 3 hours, and it can engage you. It continues to engage you. A feature film will not take that risk of being more than 2 hours or 2.5 hours. It's a big risk, because you really must have the hero, you know, either committing a rape or indulging in violence every 30 minutes, if the audience in a general sense must be kept there. So this, I think, is I think the paradox of our times, that there are issues which are so enduring and so powerful which we need to engage with, and on the other hand, whether we are, in terms of tackling the image, whether our filmmakers, as Buddhadev mentioned, particularly a whole host of new filmmakers, I think some of them, there's tremendous energy. For instance, in Tamil cinema, I think there's tremendous energy. I don't think there's any other cinema in this country today which has the energy that Tamil cinema has. Not even Hindi. Of course, a lot of it is in terms of the craft, a lot of it in terms of, you may say that this is stuff you have seen in Korean films or Japanese films or other films, but there's also a whole new indigenous, originally rooted cinema that's taking place here. And of course, as Buddhadev mentioned, there's a huge audience, a growing audience for this kind of film. And I'm happy that this hall is testimony to the fact that there's a huge following for also the alternative, what we call the alternative. My own sense is that alternative is becoming more and more mainstreamed. More and more mainstream in the sense that it is becoming more and more a central part of our lives. We can't afford to ignore this. As we celebrate 375 years of Chennai, I was just reading up the history of Chennai, and it struck me a fact which I had not come across earlier, or had not been discussed earlier much, that in the 18th century, 17th and 18th century, when Chennai was in fact formally launched, 17th and 18th century, when you had this small Chennapatnam expanding into these two towns, you call the White Town and the Black Town, people from the villages were moving here. And if you look at the demographic of the population, out of the 250,000 or 300,000 people that constituted what was then called Chennapatnam or Pattanam or Cholamandalam and so on, the various appellations at various points of time, 1/5 of this population comprised what was then called Parayars who had come from the rural areas. In other words, they were the domestics. 1/5 of the population was meant to cater to the lives, to the good life of not only the Europeans but also the other castes, the Vellalars and other castes who were, in trade and so on, who were cotton trade with the Europeans and so on. So their job was to, as palanquin bearers, as servants, as in terms of civic, necessities, keeping the place clean, hygiene, and so on and so forth. So there's been this rural-urban, shall we say, engagement in the Tamil Nadu or in the Chennai concept, which is reflected in some degree in our contemporary popular culture. I don't see ruralness of the kind you see in Tamil films in any other mainstream cinema in India today. There's no ruralness in Hindi cinema anymore. You find Bombay, and then you find Washington and New York and Sydney, and it's a NRI city axis. Even in other films, you don't find ruralness of the kind that you see. I'm not saying that ruralness is always good. You find celebration of Katta Panchayats, for instance, which you don't find in other cinemas in this country. But sometimes the ruralness also gives you a sense of the lived reality. So this, I think, goes back to this origin of a miscegenation of the population, where you found the European multi-tiers enmeshed together, and that is the creation of this whole, at least Chennai, where filmdom happens today. So these are some random thoughts I thought I should come to, and I'd like to congratulate before I conclude Anand Patwardhan on this award. I mean, the award itself is, I think, very significant because it comes from this committed group, most of whom we met here today. They were presented mementos, and the fact that they went out of their way to create this event and to celebrate this filmmaker here and now is very significant. And I'm sure that Anand also values this as importantly as with the importance that I ascribe to it. I was watching his film, Jai Comrade Bhim, some time back, and it struck me that that film has some of these aspects, of what is happening to the erasures that are taking place in the city. In that film, for instance, there is this, on B.R. Ambedkar's birthday, there is a whole Dalit groups who come, or big group who comes to the city to celebrate. And that becomes a huge problem for the neighborhood where they come, because they are seen as a nuisance. They spoil the place because they probably urinate and they defecate and so on and so forth. But they clean up after they leave. And there are these wonderful interviews about how the people there interact to this event. And it's a kind of almost a comical narrative. Where they are not even aware of how selfish, how self-obsessive they are being when they talk about these concerns, and it's scatological. I mean, you should see it. It's almost where I think if there's even an implication that the people who come, this group of people, actually are worse because they end up creating more human waste than others do, because they eat a lot more. There are there are even such kinds of discussions. I think these are important discussions. This kind of coming front, with these prejudices that the middle class, upper middle class has carried with it, and to tackle these requires guts, requires sensitivity, requires understanding of the issues. And I'm just one image that came to my mind from his film as I was thinking about it. And so I think these are not just replications of what's happening. It's not just about the Dalit movement. The Dalit movement is, I think, growingly important now. It's also challenging the latest. I'm myself a bit confused about this, because when B.R. Ambedkar is posited against Gandhi, as increasingly I've been reading about, whether Gandhi did well by the Dalits, and whether he's a stumbling block, in fact, in terms of Dalit upliftment, is a discourse that's happening. I find Arundhati Roy talking about it, about whether Iyengar is more important than Gandhi or not. And these are, I think, reflections that also come to us, or thoughts that probably come to us. In this film, of course, the Dalit, the position, at least in the film I mentioned, is that it was Gandhi who paved the way for Ambedkar to actually write the constitution, and so therefore they see it as an endorsement of Ambedkar by Gandhi. But so there could be various positions on this, and this is a constantly evolving kind of politics. And that politics becomes very important in this kind of cinema, and therefore I'll conclude by saying more power to Anand Patwardhan's elbow and to his filmmaking, and I'm sure that he will continue to inspire particularly the younger generation, as importantly as he has been for at least the 2 decades that I have known him and his work. Thank you.